Well, John, as you very well know, I think one of the biggest questions and that's commonly asked by just about everyone is, how much money can we make in this industry? And and it's also the most difficult question to answer, so I'm going to let you attempt that.
No, it is true. Ultimately, it is the question. Yeah. Because nobody wants to go in business to break even. That's not what they're about. So it's a question that ultimately everybody asks, and it is, in fact, the most difficult one to answer, because every client's goals are different, but more importantly, every location is different. Its size comes into play. In the pack and ship industry, the type of package you choose to buy comes into play. So there are many more questions than answers. So what we try and do as a company is, knowing that there are variables, there are variables in terms of population, who the co-tenants are, who the competitors are and where they are, vehicle traffic counts. I mean, you could fill a book with the variables that you have to look at and address. So our approach is typically to, once we've identified a location that's of interest, then we can sit down and perhaps put a finer point on the potential, because now we know some things. We know the rent, or the projected final rent, because we're in negotiations. And we can look at the population, we can look at the competition. Often if the location's in a shopping center, we can get the average sales per foot of the center as a whole. And all those things together can lead us to putting a better face on what the potential for revenue is. And we know the expense structure. So the rent is the big number that we have to get to. We know what utilities are going to be within a range. We know what your wages are going to be, because we look at the minimum wage and the prevailing wage. We know how many work hours it takes to operate a store. So we can factor all of those things in. But the big thing is to have an actual location, because otherwise we can talk about potential until the cows come home.
Right.
And we won't be any closer to an answer than we were at the start of the conversation. So that's how we go at that. And that's why our process is so easy for people to get into and get started, because as Paul mentioned earlier, we don't ask for a deposit. And as Leslie mentioned, our contract, or the contract that's not a contract, our agreement with our clients when we start to work is non-binding. It's in simple language. It's 3 pages long. We lower the bars at every stop to make it easy for a client to get into the process, and we're going to earn their business. And ultimately, we're going to analyze that location in terms of what the potential is. And it's certainly not a guarantee, but at the end of the road, we can have a much better sense and create for our clients a much better sense of what potentially that location can deliver to them, both in revenue and in profits. And they don't sign on the dotted line of a lease agreement until they feel comfortable with what that answer looks like.
Sure.
And that's really the best way to answer the question.
Could you expect, I mean, if you're in New York, or if you're in a small town in Texas?
Not going to be the same.
Not going to be the same.
Not going to be the same. And I often tell people that when they ask that question, I tell them whatever answer I give you today is going to be wrong. So I'd rather not do that.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's part of our process.
And we have an Excel spreadsheet and a tool that people can use as well to, if this then that kind of situation where, if their goal is to make $50,000, what is it going to take?
So they can
create the scenarios that's going to get them to that number that they're trying to develop into. And that's, that way we can kind of break it down into numbers based on this rent, based on that. This is where I'm going to end up at the 50,000 or 60, 30, whatever their goal is. That we don't know what they're trying to replace. We don't know what kind of return on investment they're looking for. So we can plug that number in, and that'll also allow us, customers per day, customer per hours, to kind of show the general reality of that goal that they want to be met.
Yeah, so we distill it down to the point where a customer or a client, prospective store owner, can actually stand outside of a potential location and see if they can get 10 customers an hour in that location to actually make a purchase, then they could achieve that big number at the end of the month. So we try and make it as easy to digest, I guess, as possible.
And our real estate team is very seasoned and works very hard at making sure they are in the best location possible for the type.